Welcome to the Security Chipmunks podcast, where we talk about the development of cybersecurity skills. To stay up to date in today's world, you need to be resilient. That's why, as advanced persistent chipmunks, we keep chipping away at it. I'm your host, Mick Sedna Johnson, and I'm here with my co host, Neil Smalley. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Edna. What do we got on the list today?
Well, first, I wanted to talk about some news. You may have heard, but there was a large Facebook leak recently. About 500,000 users' information, including phone numbers, were exposed in this leak. And it was posted on a hacking website, according to cybersecurity experts.
I think some of the confusion around it was that it was from an initial breach a few years ago, and some new data has just been leaked.
Yes. Yep. But it's still a threat to your security, so you might want to check. There are websites out there. One is haveibeenpwned.com, and you can check your phone number and your email to see if you were affected by the breach. So that's it for the news. How about some conferences? Have you heard about any conferences? Any good ones?
I am not
Anything
up
coming up?
to date on that enough, as it were. From last episode, we did mention one that's coming up very soon, and that is the IntersectCon. That's going to be freely available online. So
Yes.
that's like the most pressing one that I know of off the top of my head.
Okay. So I found out about a couple more. So there is Carolina Con that is happening April 23rd through April 25th. And that's going to be live online. And they will have some workshops, and they have a Discord that you can join so you can start connecting with people there. And then another conference that I know of, is the Diana Initiative. That conference is going to be part of that summer hacker summer camp. Sorry. Are you familiar with Hacker Summer Camp?
Well, let's pretend I'm not, and let's explain it for people who might not know.
Okay, so Hacker Summer Camp is going to be a series of conferences that happen in Las Vegas when we are in person, but that's they're held in Las Vegas, and there is Black Hat, there's DEF CON, B-Sides Las Vegas, and the Diana Initiative. And so they happen one after another. So you could go to one conference.
Sounds like a lot of
still
fun.
Staying in the same hotel room, and then you don't have to leave. Yeah, so you go there for summer camp, and you go to the different conferences. Yeah, so the Diana Initiative is one that is created for women, non-binary, and trans people to come and learn in an inclusive environment, in a welcoming environment. And they have villages, they have career fair, and one of the cool things that I recently found out is that they have a teen village. So they're encouraging teenagers to get involved in tech and in cybersecurity. So they're going to have workshops specifically for the teens. They're going to have talks that are both for beginners and for teenagers. So they'll have some entry-level information that is, and I just think that's fantastic. So I'm very excited for that.
It's great to have events you can go to with your friends and learn about things when you're that age. I know I certainly enjoyed going to different events.
Yeah, and you can attend this online for free. Um, the tickets are $5 for general admission, but for unemployed, underemployed, and students, and for military veterans,
Awesome.
tickets are free. So they make it really easy to go attend. All right, so listeners, we would love some more recommendations. Please send us your recommendations on any conference that you know of in the cybersecurity field that is virtual this year and is either free or very inexpensive so that it is accessible to our listeners. So I was thinking, what are some ways that people could get involved in their local InfoSec communities?
So there's various different groups. Sometimes it's a little harder to find a group if you're more rural. I've definitely run into that problem. But there's also this perspective you can always start a group if there isn't one in your area. So, I mean, running a group is a lot of work,
Mm-hmm.
but it is very rewarding as well. Um, I think I say it a lot, but you get out of things what you put into them. So, if you put a lot of effort into things, I think you will learn a lot. Um, at least that's my perspective on it. And so, at least in where I live,
Mm-hmm.
uh, groups tend to be clustered, up towards Seattle and whatnot. So there's lots of different groups, whether it's strictly security or a niche like programming or hardware hacking or something like that. So there's all sorts of different opportunities out there.
I would say checking out DC groups, DEF CON groups. DEF CON has the local groups, and the
Yes,
2600
that's
has
true.
meetups. You mentioned 2600 last
Oh yeah.
episode.
So
You're
I don't
still a fan, right?
know that I've actually been to one of their meetups, but as with most groups, definitely try to contact them before you show up because those listings can be out of date sometimes, or especially with the pandemic, things do change.
Yes. I know in my area, the DEF CON group has had online meetings, had meetups on Discord. Discord is really the place to talk to people nowadays. I don't know if it was this popular before the pandemic. I know for me, I was not on Discord until the pandemic hit. I viewed it as that's the gamers. I am not a gamer. I'm not getting on Discord. And then I started signing up for workshops and things like that. And then one by one,
Yeah.
started getting added to more and more Discord servers and having more conversations in there. But yeah, that is one way that you can get involved with meeting people. I think last had a conversation on IRC in
Yep, they're
2016.
still alive and kicking out
So,
there, but I
hmm
definitely think Discord is more approachable for a lot of people these.
let's jump into where we cover questions from our audience. We have a question this week from our audience, and this question is for Neil. Our audience member says, if I'm running a command in Linux and there is no message after the command ran, how do I know a command ran? Is there a way to check for that?
This is a very good question. To be able to see whether or not the command ran successfully, we can use what are called built-in variables. And built-in variables are automatically set by the shell. Um, so for your current session, there are certain uh, things that will hold various values. So in this case, what the variable is holding is the exit code of the program. So whether or not the program failed or ran successfully or some other specific error. So to get this, we would just echo space dollar question mark being the specific variable. And so typically you'll get just 0, which means the command runs successfully. Oftentimes you'll get a 1, which is a catch-all for general errors. These are the two most common that I run into. Otherwise, you can just look up exit codes if you run into one you don't recognize.
All right. Very good. So do you use that command often in your own work? Or do you trust that the commands that you
So
run
I
work
don't
right
use
away?
it too often, typically because I am doing something that I can directly see that it either worked or it didn't. So, you know, renaming a file, moving a file, deleting something, editing it. So it's usually something that's human readable that I can go back after I've run the command and check and see that it worked by just viewing it.
So that leads me to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is Google Foo, which is how do you learn all this and how to make your friends and family think that you're an expert and that you know everything. Google Foo, what is it?
Absolutely.
Is it a skill?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
When
something
I
that you develop
think
over
about
time.
things, um, going back to the really basics, at least I was taught who, what, where, when, why, and how. So most of the
Oh,
things
that's good.
can be
Mm-hmm.
chipped away at and developed by asking questions that narrow down what you're trying to achieve. So, for example, taking the previous question we had, if I'm running command in Linux, there's no message. How do I know if it ran? So, for example, you could take the command. When I approach a problem, I have to understand what everything is asking. So, the question, if I run a command in Linux, so like if I didn't know what Linux was, okay, that's going on my list. So I build myself out a list of vocabulary and break down each of those terms. So like, okay, Linux, I can put that into Google. What is Linux? And then I could go to the Wikipedia page and read about that. And so once you understand what the subcomponents of a larger question is, uh, you can really start refining the vocabulary of what type of things you need to search for. Um, Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's as simple as writing out, running a command in Linux, but there's no output. How do I see if it ran or not, or something like that? Um, Other times you have to find the specific uh, way people in the industry or that particular subset of speciality define things. I don't have a really good example right now, but there's always going to be something you're coming across that you just don't know what it means. And so as long as you break it up into smaller parts, you can eventually build the larger aspect of what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So start small.
Okay. Start small. Use that Google Foo skills and ask questions to fill in so that
Exactly.
you can get to what you're really trying to find out. Those are good tools for the toolbox. And using tools for the toolbox, you mentioned in there you have a list of terms. A lot of professionals, they keep notes of their learning and of their experiments as they're working through machines. What are some note taking advice that you have or services that you recommend?
I typically, or at least for years, I would carry around like pocket-sized moleskins, or as some people like to call them, Neil books. But or even other people call them like
Mm-hmm.
grimoires or whatnot. Because you have your all your unique to you notes. Typically, everything I might need later will go into my notes, not necessarily verbatim. And a lot of times now I have my phone, but I haven't always been like I've lived rurally before where internet's not that great. Sometimes you are trying to troubleshoot networking and you don't have internet access to look stuff up. So if you have notes on what you're trying to do, it can be quite handy. But the part I was talking about is just reading something new and then taking key points that look interesting to you or that you don't understand and researching
Mm-hmm.
them further to develop an understanding of the larger picture of what's going on. It's kind of like starting out in a game or just in like a dark cave with a little flashlight, right? And as you go
Mm-hmm.
along, you're finding parts to a bigger flashlight. You don't necessarily know how to use it yet, but if you look at each part of it, you can figure out how to build the larger flashlight and illuminate a larger area or whatnot.
I want to add with the note taking that I was mentioning. Um, so taking notes during your learning and making note cards and repeatedly looking over the information that you have learned is going to help you retain the information that you learn. Otherwise, you're not going to remember it in the long term. And a lot of the professionals, they will keep their notes in certain software because copying and pasting things uh, is just really handy in into IT fields.
So for retention, having the notes or the flashcards to go back to. And so like Anki, for example, does that automatically out of the gate for you. So it's just a flashcard program and you can make your own or download
Mm-hmm.
other people's decks of flashcards and it'll quiz you on one. It'll keep track of ones you've done and then you mark how comfortable you are with the answer and then it will automatically keep track of when it should
Mm-hmm.
quiz you again. So it's really
Yeah,
handy that way.
that's a good one. That's a great recommendation. On the job hunting side, so when you are ready to start looking for work, LinkedIn has this new feature where when you're setting your profile to open to work, you can add a video. So, a video intro for your page. Because right now in the pandemic, you're not able to meet with people one on one and network with them. This gives you a chance to let companies and recruiters know who you are. So this is going to be a great opportunity if you're good with making videos. And there is my recommendation is to go to invideo.io where you can make videos up to 15 minutes for free and use that to make your introduction video. You can add text and effects to your videos. So I think that's a quick website to make videos for your page so that you can introduce yourself to employers. On the education side, I have a featured scholarship again. So today I'm going to feature the Department of Defense Cyber Scholarship Program. So this is a scholarship, Department of Defense. If you meet the qualifications, you get a scholarship to go to college. They have both recruitment scholarships
Awesome.
for non-Department of Defense employees, and they have retention scholarship.
So speaking of learning, so about 2 years ago, I think, Network Chuck, or if you're familiar with Network Chuck, he had a video about the O'Reilly learning platform, or maybe it was called Safari, maybe it still is, I don't remember. Anyway, it's the O'Reilly learning platform, and basically I should have listened to him much earlier. I finally got around to getting on the O'Reilly
Mm-hmm.
learning platform. So I don't remember if he talked about it, but there's been plenty of people who have talked about it at this point, but I still run into people who don't know about it. So anyway, I'm going to talk about it. So if you become a member of ACM, which is the Association for Computing Machinery, it's the world's largest computing society, and it has multitude of benefits, but the one I was most interested in was the fact that it gives you access to the O'Reilly learning platform. I think in the Network Chuck video from 2 years ago, it's like $49 a month or something, or 39, 400. Anyway, it's like, let's just say $50 a month, if you're not going through ACM. With ACM, you can get, as a student, you can get a $20 membership for a year. So that's like a huge savings. And it's not just like the O'Reilly books, which are the color coded ones with the animals on them and whatnot, which are a favorite of mine. But they also have publishers like Packet, No Starch, Wiley, all my favorite books, and the
Mm-hmm.
ones that show up in humble bundles half the time. So I really like humble bundles. And if I'm buying like one a month, that's like several hundred a year. So the membership pays for itself. It's not as cool as owning like the PDF or the EPUB or whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to read it through your web browser, or if you want it on mobile, you have to read it through their app. Their app's pretty decent. I will note that some books won't load quite as nicely through their app, especially like one you mentioned last episode, I think, the how the internet works. That one is a kind of more of a picture book, and so it doesn't really load very well on the mobile app. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, I think it's a fantastic resource for students. And then even if you're not a student anymore, you can still get an ACACM membership, and it's still going to be a reduced cost compared to just going and getting the O'Reilly membership outright. I would call it a hidden gem that I should have definitely checked out sooner. I'm just so
Mm-hmm.
happy. I've been looking at like all these books that I've wanted to get, like the volatility handbook, or whatever it's called, the book about using volatility for memory forensics, and then the sysinternals manuals for Windows, inner workings of Windows and whatnot. There was like a no starch book that just came out here in April,
Mm-hmm.
where the author maps NIST guidelines to ninja scrolls, from like historical ninja stuff to actual best practices and stuff like that. So I've just been having a blast with it.
Wow.
And then the other thing that has been covered, but I I certainly hadn't really heard about it until like I think this year, and I've actually just told somebody the other day that didn't heard about it. Is if you're familiar with the SANS
Mm-hmm.
Institute, they do lots of trainings and certifications that are in demand, and so they're really expensive. So you'd want like your employer to pay for it or whatnot. So, for example, the introduction to
Mm-hmm.
cybersecurity, SEC 301, just the course alone is
Yes.
$6,340. So that's that's way out of my price. So SANS has a work study program, and if you do the work study program, you could
Mm-hmm.
get 4, 5, or 6 day courses for $2,500, or a 1, 2, or 3 day course and summit for 417 per day. So a significant cost reduction that makes it even plausible for a student or whatnot, or just somebody trying to get it on their own and they don't have work paying for it or whatnot. So I think it's a great opportunity.
That is a great opportunity. If you're new and you're trying to get into the workforce, if you're able to afford that reduced rate, that is a great cert to get. There are some companies that hold SANS certifications in high regard and are much more likely to hire people that have those types of certs, particularly in Virginia, from what I understand. Do you have any last thoughts for the day?
I'm just excited. There's always something to cover in cybersecurity. There's lots of content that we have yet to go over. There's just so much room to grow.
There is a lot of opportunities and a lot of different sections in cybersecurity that you could focus on. So I just want to leave our listeners with this. It may take a little while, it may take a long while, but as long as you're continually working on your skills and you have the desire to get into the field, you will get there. I believe in you. That's our show. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I love Network Check. He is great. He's on YouTube. Free node. So they wanted to know if you have a command that you're running in Linux and there's no command. I'm sorry. If you're running a command in Linux